First question is from Brad Galley, WXYZ.
Steve, thanks for taking time to do this with us tonight.
No trouble, Brad. How you doing?
Doing well. What's the chapter in the book that you're going to write someday about the draft lottery? What's the title of that chapter going to be called?
I have to give that some thought. I'm not much of a writer.
If you could put into context or put into words what this night means to you. I know you said last year, like, listen, you can find a good player at any position. Is this at all frustrating when they change the process and you see Buffalo land what should have been yours last year and this night doesn't go your way?
No, there's no sense complaining about it. It is the system is what it is. Good for Buffalo. Wish them well. They're lucky to have the first pick. And we have the 6th pick in the draft. We didn't go backwards. We'll do our best to make a good selection. And you just, whether it's the 6th, the 1st, the 5th, whatever pick you have, you got to find players. And the system is the same for everyone. And we just got to find a way to get good players. So not much you can do about it. I'm not losing a minute's sleep over it.
You had a smirk on your face after the selection went on the air. There were great reactions. Jim Nill ripped his headphones out. Now you go to work, right? And you find that next guy. When you go through the next couple of weeks here, what are the top priorities for you, your group, and after such a weird year, where does your attention go now?
Well, we've got a lot to work on, actually. Kind of still winding down some of the season-ending stuff. We internally have a lot of things to do. We've got a lot of our players' contracts that need to be renegotiated or players signed. We'll start to get to work at that. Got to prepare for the draft, prepare for the expansion draft, and same as usual, and then get ready for free agency. So we have a lot of time, but there's a lot to be done, and we just kind of chip away each day at a little bit of everything.
Thanks, Steve.
Next up, Art Regner, DetroitRedWings.com.
Hi there, Steve. Well, I guess the good thing is at least you did go down. I think this is the first time in Red Wing history you didn't actually go down in the draft lottery. You stayed at number 6 where you were slotted. I'm kind of curious, when you look at it that way and it being such a weird year, how comfortable are you with the whole process that you had guys in Europe, Kronwall was in Sweden the whole year, that you're as prepared for this draft as you can be considering the circumstances?
Yeah, we've tried to make the most of it, and wherever there was hockey being played, if we could be there in person, we had people there, and if we couldn't be there in person, for the most part, I think we've had access to watch it on video. It's not ideal, but you do the best you can and make sure you know the players, and so that's all we've done. Every team's in the same boat, and we try to find some players based on what we've seen. So again. I think at this stage we're as prepared as we can be. I think I know there's an event going on in Erie with some of the Ontario kids right now that some of our staff are at and watching that. And after that, it's pretty much wrapped up, and we get ready. Put our list together and get ready for the actual draft.
Steve, you've been pretty upfront saying, look, we need to improve in all areas. But is there one specific position that you're really kind of honed in on and looking at? I know you're not going to tell me, but is there one place or one player that, boy, you hope drops to you at 6, or maybe is going to be that diamond in the rough?
Well, no, again, we do need help in every area, and the reality is, whoever we pick, in 1, 2, 3 years when they're ready to play, things can change. So our philosophy or plan will be to pick the best prospect on the board. I don't know if we're in a position with the 6th pick to say, we definitely need this position. So, Drapes and the guys have continued to finalize their list here over the next month and get ready to go. But again, our intention will be to pick the best prospect we think is available when we pick 6th.
I know Håkan Andersson has Europe locked down, and, it's a legendary scout for the Red Wings, but how beneficial was it to have Kronwall in Sweden, being able not only to check up on maybe potential guys you're going to draft, but guys like Veleno and Mo Seider and Berggren and Raymond? I mean, having an actual real life Red Wing there in the flesh, being able to talk to them.
Well, Corona is really mainly focused, his time is spent with our draft picks, our prospects. So he's fantastic. He's really enthusiastic about it. He's great. He has a great way with the kids, and Nick, he's a professional and a bright guy. So we've been very lucky that he's really jumped into it and is as enthusiastic as he is about it. He's done a great job, and we're lucky to have him there. He's as I say, he's focused mostly on player development, and we do have several players in Sweden. But also he gets a chance to watch a lot of the pro hockey there, as well as the draft. But we have our amateur scouts all over Europe. That's their priority, and that's what their job is, to find the prospects for the draft.
I could ask you a lot more questions, Steve, but I promise this will be the last one. Restricted free agents. Will you start negotiating with them now? Will you be able? Are you planning on trying to get some of those guys under lock and key before within the next month or so?
Well, we'll get started. I can't tell you it's like tomorrow morning, but we'll get started on some of these things over the in the near future, and they'll get done when they get done.
Great. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Next up, Helene St. James, Detroit Free Press.
Hi, Steve. Moritz Seider was a 6th overall pick, and it seems like we can always look back on drafts and redo them, and players would have gone higher maybe than where they originally went. I mean, leading into that, how confident are you that you'll get a good player who can maybe move the needle on the rebuild?
Well, I think we'll get a good prospect. Again, I've off the top of my head, I don't have a list in front of me of the kids, but I've seen the majority of those kids that'll be in that 1 to 10 range. So again, we're excited about the possibilities that'll be there. Ultimately, I think more so this year than any other year, you're going to have vastly different lists, even with the I think within the the people within the media that are responsible for their outlets, for their draft lists. You'll see radical differences this year, just based on which league these kids were playing in and how much they played or didn't play. So this one's going to be maybe there'll be more surprises than ever, I guess. But I think, again, sitting at 6, there's players we think will be there, and multiple players, and we'll be excited about the pick. And ultimately, do they move the needle? We hope they do. When that happens, we're not sure.
And I'm curious, you have considerable experience now as a general manager, but you draw at all on your experience as a player in shaping a rebuild. You know what you went through as a player, you know what happened with the 1989 draft. Like, does that ever play in your mind when you're shaping this team?
Well, I'm dying to have a 1989 draft. Yeah, let's hope we have one. But at the time, I was on the team. We didn't. You're curious about the draft as a player on any team. You take note when the draft comes, see who you got, really with your first round pick, and the kids you don't really know. So I think I had played against Sergei at the World Championships. Vladdy, I think, was on that team as well. So I knew them. I played against Nick the year after he was drafted. But going into the draft, the player that I knew the most was Sergei, and he was obviously one of the best players on their men's team, which was a tremendous team at that time. So, at somewhere along the line, if we could get a draft that's even half of that, obviously we'd be thrilled. I
guess my point is more to that, how tough it can be even when you have a draft like that. It was still 8 more years before you lifted the cup, that this is a long-term project, much as we all would like to see immediate.
Yeah. Again, everybody, somebody will ask you when you're going to make the playoffs, what's your timeline here or there. I can't give one because it's a guess. We're going to continue. We don't, now we know we have the 6th pick in the draft. Who we're picking, we don't know that today. We'll know that in 2 months, so where we're picking in the draft next year, I have no idea. So we just kind of stick with the method or the methodical approach. We'll continue to draft, and hopefully we get really lucky one year and we get 4 or 5 players or 3 players, and that speeds it up a little bit. But unfortunately, it does take a long time, and if you get it done quicker, you were luckier than most.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
Next question, Max Bultman with The Athletic.
Hey, Steve, I'm just curious, how how you view kind of the strength of this class overall. I know year to year it can kind of be overstated that one year is a really great year and one year is not, but how do you kind of view the top 10, I guess, of this year?
It's interesting. Again, Max, I don't know. There's been draft classes that, in the last 10 years that we look back and we said, wow, at the time, this is a tremendous class. And we're excited about all the different players. And you look back 10 years later and you go, review them, and they weren't as good as you thought. So again, I really don't know. Again, I've seen most of the kids that are in the top 10 that we think are in the top 10 anyway. I don't know what other teams are thinking. And you're going to get a pretty good prospect and go from there. So they're all different positions, potentially all different positions, maybe not goaltenders. I don't know. So anyway, it's again, just unusual with some players not playing, some players playing in a men's league, some playing just different leagues. It's going to be just everybody's lists will be so different and vary from list to list, and there'll be maybe a lot of surprises in everybody's eyes when the draft actually takes place.
I think you've done about 10 or so of these now. How do you think you're different as a drafter than you were at the beginning, or what changes, I guess, have you made along the way?
You know what, Max, I don't know if people understand, like, your amateur scouts run the draft. You're the GM, you announce the first pick. Apart from that, you're not heavily involved in it. You just, I'll take the credit when the guys turn out really well, and I'll pass the blame on to the scouting staff when the guys don't turn out. But that your amateur scouting staff runs the draft. The GM, how involved are you? May be involved in some concepts, but in general, that's what you pay your amateur scouting staff to do. So how have I changed? And I'm not really sure. You really wrestle with how much influence you want to have versus not saying a word. And there's been times at various picks where I've spoken up, and I'm glad I did. And then looking back, there's times when I have not spoken up and wish I did, and vice versa. So again, you let your guys, trust your guys, let them do their job, and give them some parameters of what you want to do, and go from there.
And then last thing for me, I think when you look back at the last, I don't know how long, recent history, most of the teams that have won have had at least a top 2 pick on their roster. Are you confident that a Stanley Cup winner can be built if you don't have one of those? For sure. Yeah, we're gonna do the best we can, and if the plan is to be really bad and get a first or second pick, it's hard to get. As Red Wing fans, we all sit here and watch the last 5 years. We haven't been able to get a top 3 pick, and we'll find a way. You look back on the teams that have been there. Carolina won the Cup, I believe, without a top pick. It does happen, and we'll build a good team, and we'll figure out a way to, we'll get a superstar along the way in the draft somewhere. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
Next up, Ted Colfin, Detroit News.
Hey, Steve. Hey, Max kind of stole a lot of my thunder, but I was curious, like rounds 2 through 7, how important are those picks for you guys? It seems like obviously through the years, the organization's been built on a lot of those types of picks there late in the draft. And is it going to be tougher to find people because of the way things shook down this year and stuff?
Again, I think you can look at it 2 ways. It's potentially tougher to find people, or you might find a gem later on that didn't play much, that you saw a year ago, that one of our scouts saw a year ago, and it says, hey, I'd really like to pick this player. So you're going to look at it 2 ways. Again, is that you're going to get lucky or you're going to get unlucky. And I do think there'll be some really good players for whatever reason that are picked later in the draft. Maybe they didn't play at all. Maybe they played a little bit, or they played in a men's league in Europe and hardly got on the ice. And you're going to wake up in 3 years and go, wow, I had no idea this guy was going to be this good. But so, generally in a normal year, as our scouts would see these kids play a lot in every single league. You wouldn't. This year, some of the kids, the Ontario kids, haven't played. I think they're playing in Erie for a couple of weeks here, and a lot of the leagues shut down early, and so
Again, I think there's going to be kids that go much later in the draft than they normally would have if they got a chance to play all year, and the same way, kids will go a lot higher just basically because they got the teams got to see them a lot.
That's all I need. Thanks, Steve.
Our last question is from Ansar Khan, M Live.
Yeah, hi, Steve. I know you're going to take the best player regardless of position, but in that first 6 to 8 range, I mean, do you see a lot of defensemen? Is that the strength of the draft at the top there?
I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say the strength at the draft is any particular position. I think there's a variety of guys that could go in any order. I just I don't know what other teams are thinking. I have a pretty good idea what our guys are thinking, and we haven't really finalized it yet. But there's players at every position, and they could go in any order in that top 10.
So there's other than maybe the first couple of picks, you see not much separation there in the top 10. I mean, players could pretty much see players going any order after the first couple of picks.
I don't even know about the first couple of picks. Who are they going to be? You seem to know.
No, I'm asking you.
I'm asking you.
Okay.
Who are the first 2 picks?
Owen Power, the first pick would be my projection.
Okay. Who's second?
I'll go with Edvinsson.
Okay. Interesting. We'll note that.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all the questions we have for tonight. Thanks to everyone for joining us, and thank you, Steve, for your time.
I appreciate it, everyone. Thank you.
In typical Steve fashion, ending that one, giving Ansar a little crap there at the end of the presser. And it seems like Steve Yzerman thinks a lot like Ken Kal does. He doesn't know where anybody's going to go. He's not sure that Owen Power is going to be that number 1 pick. Let's bring back Art Regner, Ken Kal, and Carly Johnston. We know the Red Wings are picking at 6, so the good news is they didn't drop. And the last time the Red Wings picked 6, it was Maurice Seider, and the time before that, it was Philip Zadina. So good history there. They are going to pick a really good player at number 6, and I think it's good for the Red Wings. They didn't drop. My optimism didn't shine through, unfortunately. But hey, Buffalo, the best odds at the number 1 pick, and they're right there.
Yeah,
But you know what's amazing about this draft? Go ahead, Carly.
Go ahead. Oh, totally, go ahead.
No, the thing that's amazing about this draft is I think the NHL forgot to shuffle the cards there, because from 15 through 4, nothing really changed. It just went down the order, and I was a little bit surprised with that. But again, just going over the players in the top 10, I just think that Buffalo is going to draft on their needs. Now, they needed to go first overall. They might not. I mean, that's why I think Steve Yzerman was saying that, it's a crapshoot out there. If you look at last year's draft, I think we all knew who the top 4 players were going to be. And certainly there was no surprise there. But this year, and as Steve mentioned, there could be some surprises. And, sometimes you have to read between the lines with Steve Yzerman. Is he trying to say something between the lines there that maybe the Red Wings might go outside the box? And Steve Yzerman is no stranger to picking players outside the box. We saw it in Mort Seider a few years ago. So, I don't know. I just think that depending on a team's needs, that's where teams are going to address what they need, whether it's a defenseman, a goaltender, a forward, whoever. So I don't know what's going to happen. It'll be interesting to see who the Red Wings pick at number 6.
Carly?
I couldn't agree more. And I think this is something I've said all night long, I guess I should say, is Steve Yzerman. I don't think he goes by the book. Like he was just saying, I'm sure he's seen that Powers is slated to go at number 1. He was just giving Ansar Khan a little bit of crap there. But I mean, it's totally true. Steve Yzerman just goes by his own need. Well, I should say the team's needs. And he did say that amateur scouting is a big part of it. And I know we're giving Steve Yzerman all the credit, and he said he'll take it when the players turn out to be good. But the amateur scouts are really the people who are picking these players and keeping their eye out on these guys. So I'm really looking forward to see what will happen. Another thing that Steve Yzerman said was that, hey guys, no speculation really right now. We'll see in a couple months who we will draft at number 6. That's about all we know right now, is that we're drafting at number 6.
Art, we know that Steve doesn't like to show his hand really at all when it comes to the draft. He's very, very tight-lipped about it, but he did say that they need players everywhere still. So he didn't even a certain position that he thought needed more than another. So it could be a forward, it could be a defenseman. Who knows what Steve Yzerman is thinking for this 6th overall pick?
Well, I'll say this. I'm sure Steve appeared after, messing around with Ansar a little bit and laughing and joking. He's in a much better mood this year than he was last year at this time. So, they didn't drop. They didn't drop. So I guess my Jamie Pusher hockey stick that Jamie gave me many years ago with the red underwear kind of worked because they didn't draft. They didn't drop, So I think that's great. What does this all tell me when Steve was asking Ansar how he would draft? Jesper Wallstedt, welcome to Detroit. You're, I think that's exactly what this is all about. He's just saying, you know what? Hey, yeah, from the 24th pick, we were going to get the 24th pick, Washington's pick, all that down, Drapes, that's all you guys. Good luck, all you amateur scouts and all those people we're paying the big bucks for to go out and watch games all year. I'm Steve Yzerman. We're picking 6 overall. I'm picking a goalie. I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
I thought you said that was only happening if they took or if they fell to 8, Art. Now it's 6th pick too. They're taking him no matter what. Right.
Well, I modified it. First of all, doesn't that guy look like he's related to David Hasselhoff or something? Look at that. That guy is serious, man. That picture, hey, crack a smile. You're a world-class goalie, fella. But anyway, I just want to say this, is that, Steve, I would not be shocked when you're thinking outside the box. And again, I think, and they signed Wyatt Newpower, and, they've got a pretty nice little thing going on the defensive side as far as prospects. They really do, especially if Mo steps in next year with Philip Hronek and, Lindstrom takes another step, Dennis Chalowski. They've got some tools on the defensive end. Forward, they need help on. They definitely need help on forward. They need guys to score goals. But I'm telling you, if this defensive core is rounding out pretty nicely right now, like I think he thinks, I think he goes goalie. I think I would not be surprised. They need nothing against Bernier and Grace. Guys in the system, they're all trying. But if you can get a superstar goalie, and they don't come down the pike too many times, I would do it. I would definitely pull the trigger and do it. 24 would be nice, depending if there's a forward there. If there's not a highly skilled forward at 6, somebody that he really believes in, I would go goaltender. If there is, I would pick a forward, and then I at 24 I would go with Sebastian Cosa, then the other goaltender 24. I think they're going to draft a goalie high. I really do. But that's just me. See, Steve never would have asked me what I would have done. I would have gone for and when I reached Detroit and said, "You're drafting a goalie," he probably would have killed me. But anyway, that's what I'm thinking.
You had your opportunity to let him know how you were feeling, and you just let it slip through your fingers, Art.
Well, you know what? First of all, Brad Galley, and I love Brad. He was going on there for a while, and I didn't know I was second up because I just type in question and then boom, it's like, God, I got to talk to Steve already. I got to collect my thoughts, but I really did want to ask him about Wyatt Newpower though. That's the guy that I wanted, the guy that they just signed, and also, we haven't mentioned this too. And the Red Wings didn't have to announce this, but, they lost Matthias Brome and Christian Juice are they signed in. They're playing in Switzerland next year. So those were a couple guys, whether they were in the mix or not. So things have been happening in Red Wing land. But so there was a lot to ask Steve, but. I wanted to ask him about restricted free agents. I think Cromwell being in Sweden was absolutely huge. I think he had a great effect on Mo. I think he had a great effect on Joe, and Berggren and Lucas Raymond, all those guys. Having there a real life Red Wing, as I called him to Steve, but having a guy who isn't that far removed from playing, there, who's a very accomplished player like Nick. I just think that worked out really, really well. So things are bright for the Red Wings. I truly believe that. And, when Jesper Wallstedt, starts doing endorsements and TV commercials a few years from now, remember, I saw that coming.
All right, guys, a couple minutes left before we end it for tonight. Does anybody else besides Art Regner have any final thoughts about tonight's draft lottery and where the Red Wings fell, or any other team?
I feel like I gave mine, so I'll give Ken the floor.
Thanks, Carly. I really don't know, and I said this before the draft show actually occurred. It's going to be interesting to see who the Red Wings do draft. I disagree with Art. Art, I love you, but I don't think they're going to go with a goaltender. The only way Steve Yzerman goes with a goaltender is if this guy is a can't miss, like a Vasilevsky. I'm not so sure he is. That's why I don't think that he would draft a goaltender. But hey, who knows, Art? I know you. You liked the goaltender last year, Askarov, and is Askarov better than Wallstedt? I don't know, but I think the only way Steve Yzerman drafts a goaltender that high is if him and the scouting staff absolutely know without a doubt that he is going to be a super goaltender in the National Hockey League. With that said, I still think that they need goal scoring, and I think they probably have to go with offense. And we heard Steve Yzerman's post-game comments after the season, and one of the most disappointing things was the power play and also, not being able to score. Now, who they pick this year, obviously probably won't play this year or in the next couple of years, but down the road, I think the player will be a huge difference maker, I think, on offense. So I think they go with an offensive-minded player.
All right, check back with the four of us in a couple of months as we all try to guess who Steve Yzerman's going to take at number 6. For the record, none of us were right last year at number 4.
No.
Art, don't even say you were, because you said every potential pick. So do not say you were right.
He's Lucas Raymond's line mate, and so I was close. I got the line correct, just not the player.
Doesn't count. Don't count. We're going to start our studying as soon as we hang up this call, too. And one of us is going to be right this year. I just know it. All right,
everybody.
Thank you so much for tuning into this special edition of the Word on Woodward presented by Raymond. The Word on Woodward will be back at its normal time on Wednesday starting at noon with all of your Red Wings and Tigers news on Red Wings and Tigers social media channels. Can you guys tell it's late for me? It's just about my bedtime, okay? So cut me some slack here. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. We really enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.